Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the Experts Talk stage. We now have our very own Catherine Courage on stage. She's VP for Product Design and User Experience at Google. She also co-authored the book Understanding Your User and regularly speaks and writes about topics like design, innovation, and user experience. Today she'll talk to us about how Google designs products with user trust as our focal point. Please welcome Catherine on stage.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to see a nice crowd after lunch. My name is Catherine Courage, and as just introduced by Nabil, I run user experience for our ads products at Google. And those products include the users who are advertisers, our publishers, and also the many, many end users who encounter our ads ecosystem. So designing for trust has always been very important to us at Google, but within the last years, it's become even more important, and it's become very much a top priority and an area of focus. So I want to talk to you about some of the things that we've been doing to really help continue focus and make sure that this is a top priority across the company. But before I talk about some of our principles, let me take a little bit of a step back in time. When you think about the founders of the internet, they wanted to create a network that was free, that was going to be open, and that was going to do good for the world and really have a positive impact. This mission ties really nicely with Google's mission for the last 20 years of making the world's information useful and universally accessible. This is a top priority and continues to be a priority. If you're going to make the world's information universally accessible and useful, then it's important that you understand the users who are trying to access that information. It's key that you understand the users and the journey they're on, whether they're business users or end users. And this is a key function of our user experience team at Google. We want to deeply understand our users and understand the goals that they're trying to achieve so that we can deliver great experiences that match their needs. We believe over the last few years that we've done a really great job of delivering ads that work well for businesses and deliver a solid experience. To use a personal example from quite recently, I was at home and I decided that I wanted to have salmon for dinner, and I knew I'd used the salmon recipe previously. So I went to Google and I typed in sweet salmon, and lo and behold, I had access to links where I had previously searched and was able to find the recipe that I'd used quite recently with ease. I jump in, I find my salmon recipe, I'm happy I'm going to have salmon for dinner tonight. I then see a display ad on the right because I'd recently been searching shows because I have a trip this summer to New York. I say, oh, all right, I actually didn't book those tickets to Dear Evan Hansen. I jumped in, I booked my tickets to Dear Evan Hansen. I then realized, well, okay, I'm now committed, I've got my tickets, I need to book my hotel. I go off on another task, I book my hotel, I find a great one in Greenwich, which is where I want to stay. I'm completing another task. I then get sidetracked back to dinner. I'm thinking I'd love to have some tartine bread with my dinner. Too lazy, I don't want to go out, so I go find a place that will deliver bread for me. And this is what's really powerful. When the ads ecosystem works, it works tremendously well in that I'm able to get my tasks done, and advertisers are able to serve up valuable ads because they're contextual and relevant. It provides a beautiful, seamless experience. And when ads work well, they also can instill trust in our user base. So for example, we've done more and more to display that to users in terms of letting them see why we display certain ads and having control on what they see and what they don't see. Allowing them to continuously give feedback about the ads they see, whether they like them or don't like them. Anytime we're doing a transaction with a customer and we're offering a guarantee or a service, we want to make it very clear to users what those terms are that we're offering. If we have an ad, we always make it clear when there's sponsored content versus organic content. And lastly, we've been doing more to allow users to bypass or just see segments of ads if they feel they're not relevant to them. So this is a really important part of the ecosystem, giving users control and allowing them to feel like they have a say in the advertisements that they see. And when this works well, it's a really great ecosystem. It's fast-paced, people are getting their tasks done, they're getting from A to B, things are moving seamlessly and efficiently. This is the world that we want to continue. But over the last couple of years, we're having more of these kinds of experiences, where we're seeing bottlenecks in the system, where we're seeing things collide. And a lot of this is driven by many forces such as data breaches that are happening in the world of the internet, or it may be because of people's concern about privacy and what it means to them on the internet. There's government policy. There are all kinds of factors and forces which are creating angst and tension in the system. And it makes us realize as user experience professionals just how fragile that user experience is. There's so many touch points that our customers have and our users have, and it can just take one moment where they have a bad experience to really destroy trust. And we don't want this to happen. As a result, we're putting a renewed focus on trust and really making it core to everything we do. It's why you're hearing this topic throughout GML. It's why you hear this topic last week at Google I/O. This is something that we're taking very seriously, and we realize it's a foundation for us, and it's a foundation for our advertisers, publishers, businesses, and all of our users. So what does trust mean if you're a user experience professional? What does this mean, and how do we change our behaviors day in and day out in terms of thinking about designing for our products? So I want to talk about a set of key considerations. Let's start with the first one, which is owning the problem. We can't just stick our head in the sand and pretend this is not going on. As much as we might want to ignore it, that's not going to help things. It's only going to make matters worse. So we have to recognize that these challenges exist and figure out what we can do to try and create better relationships of trust. I really like this particular definition of trust, and why I like it is it hones in on the word vulnerable. Whether you're a business user or an end user, there's a vulnerability about trust. You are giving Google information about yourself or about your context, or maybe it's your customer's data, and you expect that we will do the right thing with that information. We realize this. And as a result, our many design teams across Google who are working on end-user products are all focused on trust and designing for trust. The same with our experienced designers who are focused on creating applications and products for business users. But we recognize even this is not enough. Google is a vast company with many, many products, and we can't just have each individual group thinking about trust and privacy. And as a result, we've created a wrapper around all these teams, and we have a privacy and data protection office that's focused on creating a set of best practices that all of our teams are using to help define trust, to help design for trust in a consistent way that's going to be understood by all of our users. So acknowledging the problem certainly is step one, but it doesn't help solve the problem. It doesn't help solve those challenges. So what are we doing to help solve? Well, the first thing that we need to do is, again, understand our customers, understand our users. And we do this by spending hours out in the field with our customers, seeing their behaviors day in and day out, understanding their perceptions, doing surveys, having conversations and interviews. And we learn a tremendous amount by doing this. For example, a recent survey that we did at the end of 2018 showed the critical importance of privacy when it comes to our customer. The top 6 results related to privacy, security, trust. This is something that we were not seeing in years prior, and something that we certainly could not ignore. We were seeing that these kind of factors were more important to customers than even having a quality product. This isn't something that we wouldn't have expected, so talking to our customers is key, so we really understand how critical this is. Now, what's interesting is we have customers who tell us this, yet we look at their behaviors and what they do, and we see that most users, in fact, are not changing their behavior. Even though they care about privacy and trust and security, they're in fact not doing anything about it. So we can't just accept this. It means that we as Google need to do more to educate our users and help them understand the actions that they should be taking and the reasons that they should be changing their behavior. We don't just go out and observe end users, we also spend time with our business users like advertisers. We want to understand what's important to all of you and when you think about privacy, when you think about security. And these are some of the key trends that we've seen emerging. And as a result, as we build our products, we keep these factors in the forefront so we can design solutions that will adhere to your needs. So how do we do that? Well, the thing we need to think about is how do we design products that are going to give you more control and more protection? One of the ways that we need to do this is to anticipate misuse. I've been in the design field for over 20 years, and we always used to design for what we called the happy path. We would think about customers and they're going on their journey and the most efficient path, the easiest way for them to get their tasks done, and this is how we would focus our time and energy. Now we need to continue to do that, but additionally, we need to think about possible bad intent. And this is something we used to take for granted because we would think people wouldn't operate with bad intent. And even though it might be a fraction of the cases that this actually happens, it is still our responsibility to prevent this from happening. So we now spend a lot of time thinking about what could go wrong and how do we prevent it. A really great example for end users is the security checkup that we've rolled out. It's been great to see that we have hundreds of millions of users who are actually using this security checkup. They can go in and actively see the status of their account, how it's been used, and they have controls that they can take to manipulate how they want their experience to be. Hundreds of millions is great, but we need to get more people taking advantage of these kinds of tools, again, to proactively protect them. We also think about this from an advertiser perspective. A really great example is within our search ads platform. We've always had the ability from a brand safety perspective for our advertisers to insert keywords that they do not want their brands to be affiliated with. This is very, very important. But we've found that this is not enough. We need to actually do more. And we've actually need to put greater controls on certain keywords that could potentially be misused. Again, in most cases, they are not being misused. The example of the word drugs could be used by a pharmaceutical company, but it could be used in a negative way. And as a result, we put greater controls on a large set of keywords that we think could potentially be misused. Another way we're trying to protect our advertisers, we're trying to protect our end users and really anticipate where things could possibly go wrong. We hear loud and clear from all user types, businesses and end users, that you want greater transparency and greater control. So we're trying to make sure we deliver this. One of the things that we talked about at Google I/O last week was the updates that we've made to My Account for our users. Again, we've got so many product teams across Google, and each one was operating in their own silo and in good intent, creating controls for our users, but they were distributed everywhere. And as an end user, to try and in one place update your controls was very difficult. So we made a concerted effort to create a single My Account to make it very clear when people are logged into our products. And with one tap, make it so the users could access those controls so they can understand what's going on across their Google accounts. This was a very important, critical change for us. And we're trying to take this kind of mindset approach, common approach across all our products in the areas that it's really key for our end users. It's the same with our advertisers. We've heard again and again from our advertisers that they think automation and machine learning can be great and really powerful, but they do not want Google just automatically applying it. You want us to tell you things that we could help you in your ad campaigns and help you improve them, but you want to make the choice as to whether you apply them or not. You want to understand why we're making those recommendations, so then you can assess if you want to take them or not. And then with one quick click, choose to turn them on or choose to ignore them. So we're hearing this feedback loud and clear and always looking at all areas of our products to ensure that we can give every user greater control in terms of the actions that are happening. And this isn't enough. We need to think globally. We are very privileged to have a global user base of billions of users. And with that comes great responsibility. It means we can't just design for the many, many millions of users who are in the US or North America. We need to think about our global audience. So the research that we're doing, we're now extending it so that it is global in terms of privacy. Because what we're learning, Pinecone is one example of a research study we're doing about privacy, is that privacy in different locales can vary. For example, we're seeing big differences in sentiment around privacy in different regions of the world. And how we may perceive things in the US and what might work for us may not work at all for a location like France or India. And we need to be aware of these differences so we can design appropriately for them. Some other examples we've seen in Latin America. Often users care more about their physical safety than their digital safety. We see in countries like Japan that they actually have greater trust for big industry brands like Google as opposed to other regions. In India, we have learned that many women have smart devices, but they're expected to share them with other people. So multiple people are using those devices. These are key findings that we need to be aware of so we can design appropriately for different locales. And when we think about designing globally, it's not just geographically. We need to think about everybody of all abilities. It is paramount that trust is something that is accessible to absolutely everyone, regardless of location, age, gender, language. We give great thought to the design work that happens to ensure that this is the case. A couple of examples. We recently launched a cool new fun app so that children at a very early age could start to understand the importance of safety on the internet. We believe this is really key, and children are having electronic devices, smart devices in their hands at a very early age, and we believe it's our responsibility to ensure they understand how to be safe on the web. We also spend extensive time on any of our written policies. A great example is our privacy policy. This went through hundreds of iterations to ensure that the language was clear, was easy to consume, was translated into endless languages, had appropriate visuals so people with different learning styles could understand the content, and that there were also videos available so for people where reading is not their learning style, they can consume the content in different ways. It's key for us to ensure that people understand our policies in this area, and we go to great lengths to ensure it's consumable by everyone. The last category is communicate and share. At Google, in past, we've been quiet about the work that we've been doing on trust and privacy. We've often assumed that our user base knows that we're working on this, and this is just not okay anymore. We've come to recognize that we need to be much more explicit about what we're doing, and we need to proactively communicate. That's why you'll see Sundar talk about trust. You heard Prabhakar and Philip talking about trust at the keynote this morning. From every executive all the way down to every employee in the company, this is something that we're all focused on, and we're taking actions to be more vocal about what we're doing in this area. We also have lots of resources that are regularly available to the public. We have transparency reports that are available. We have reports for business users so they understand how their data is being used and the things that they can do to protect the content that's important to them. These are things that are very high-level, sweeping policy. We've also come to understand through our research that many of our users and advertisers also care about the small things in terms of communications. For example, when we're rolling out product changes, they want us to ensure that we're communicating those things appropriately. They don't want to be surprised or caught off guard. And this is also a key part of trust. At the end of the day, we recognize that trust is something that is not static. It is dynamic, it is ever changing, and it very much is going to take a dialogue in both directions. We need to hear from all of you about what matters to you and what's top of mind, and we need to be communicating outwards about what we are doing and the stance that we have in this area and the actions that we're taking. So we will continue to focus on these areas. They are the utmost importance to us, and will continue to evolve and improve in all areas of our products. At Google, we've absolutely come to realize that if we're going to design trusted experiences, we need to be accountable to businesses and to people who use them. Thank you.